Hello, my name is Jeremy. This is Red Beans Recording, and in front of me I have the Sequential Pro 3. This is sort of a spiritual successor to the Pro 2, which was a darling of the modulationable synthesizer sound design world. What it is at its core is an incredibly capable 3-oscillator synthesizer with 2 normal oscillators and 1 wavetable oscillator. 4 filter types, basically, almost. We have a 4-pass OTA, a 4-pass ladder, and a 2-pole state variable, which can go from low pass, notch, to high pass, and also has a bandpass mode. Multiple stages of distortion, including a tuned feedback circuit, 4 envelopes, 3 LFOs, an incredibly robust sequencer, CV in and out. This thing is just wild. And I played it at NAMM 2020 on the showroom floor, and got home and reached out to Sequential and was like, can I buy one of these, please? And they were like, yes, you can buy one. So I bought one. It's been over at the keyboard station, and now it's here to talk to you about it because it's been too long, and I can't believe I haven't talked to you about it before. Whenever I get a new synth, I spend a lot of time making presets for it. So we're going to go through some of the presets that I've made for this and talk about what's going on, and hopefully you'll get a sense of what this thing can do and just how good it sounds. So this first preset I made is called Underwear, and I'm going to hit hold to lock the sequence, so when I hit a key, it'll just play, and we'll go through what's going on. So like I said, this thing has 3 oscillators. Over here, oscillator 1 and 2 share the same architecture. You have a octave. Turn off the effects for now. And continuous waveform selection between triangle and square or pulse. And then a continuous shape mod, which acts on all 3 of these. I really like the ability to get everything from like classic pulse width modulation to sort of wave folding or whatever it's doing. It's pulse width modulating the triangle over there. It's really, really nice to have that option. It's a lot of sound design options in between these little sweet spots, and all of these are modulatable. The modulation matrix on this, which I'll get into more depth later, is incredible. There are sources on here that I did not think I would ever have in a synth, and it's really easy to send stuff back and forth to modulation stuff. So, you can see that the screen is changing as I adjust parameters to a screen that will give me more information about that. It does jump around. You can see here that like it's trying to go between cutoff and the oscillator menu. It's not really a huge deal. It's still a very nice screen. So here's oscillator 2. It shares, like we talked about, the same controls as oscillator 1. Let's go ahead and set this to a pure triangle. We'll set oscillator 1 to pure pulse. Okay, cool. Oscillator 3 is where things get interesting. Let me turn off paraphonic mode and turn off hold. So oscillator 3 is a wavetable oscillator, meaning that it has a bank of wavetables that you can pick from, and some of them are really wild. So we have traditional shapes like saw, supersaw, pulse, triangle, and sine, with continuous modulation between those. You can stop playing. So there's a more normal sine. You can hear that we can fold that sine wave, which is really nice. So here is an example of a more complex wavetable, and I'm going to turn it down and play through it. It actually says sequential. And, you know, I already showed you that this is modulatable, so you can get some really cool wavetable modulations. Waterphone. There's a lot of really cool wavetables in here. I'm not going to go through all of them. But as with any wavetable synthesizer, careful modulation and selection of your wavetable can have a prodigious effect on your sound. All right, since we're in here, I'll just show you that we do have an oscillator slop. You can hear it slopping that oscillator, which is nice for big, lush pads if you want to do that. So yeah, those are the oscillator sections. Let us reset this and talk about some more stuff. All right. Turn off the effects. I have a lot of drive on this right now. There is a distortion unit and a drive unit, and we'll talk about the filters. With the drive off. This thing can get really nasty, and we'll go over that more too, because it's wonderful. All right, so pretty standard 4-pole low pass. But all the filters just have a really nice musical sound. One of the things I tested when I was testing this out was whether or not it could acid, and the way that attack envelope is really snappy. That's something that I associate with a particular type of sound that I really want to be able to get. So it can do that. 4-pole louder. And then this really interesting state variable filter, which we'll start in low pass mode. This is a continuously modulatable filter between low pass, notch, and high pass. So if this resonance turned up, we can hear this a bit better. There's our high pass. And then notch. This is really good for string patches, like a SEM sound, SEM filter sound, so we'll get to that a little bit later. And then 2-pole low pass, and then a band pass, which benefits from some distortion. Since we have the filter modulation up over here, we're getting almost like a reverse low pass envelope like we would because we have a band pass on, so it's pretty cool. There we go. That's pretty dope. Cool. So that's the filter. Very capable, modulatable here. Everything is modulatable. Now let's talk about the effects. All right, here's a nice one. All the presets for that come with the unit have a sequence associated with them. You don't have to play it, but it's one of the cool things that they did when programming this was give you the option to just hit play and sort of hear like, oh, what do they intend for this sound like? What's it supposed to do? And some of them are just incredible in terms of the amount of modulation and stuff that's going on. So we'll talk about the sequencer in a little bit. Just kind of want to play this a little bit. Over here, you have a touch strip that can be latched. And a mod thing, which you can both assign to things. So obviously this sort of self-latches because it's a mod wheel. So 2 performance options here, which is really nice. All right, let's hold this and take a listen to what's going on. So that's what our sound sounds like without any effects. I did use some modulation on the panning here, which gives the oscillators a nice sort of stereo thing before they even hit chorus or delay. And since there are stereo delays in here, which is the first effect we just turned on, you're going to get nice stereo delay panning on that. So stereo delay, you can sync it. It doesn't have to be synced, and you can also modulate the sync frequency or non-sync frequency with pretty much anything. Feedback, and most of the effects here have the ability to dial in their low-pass frequency cutoff, which is really, really useful. So let's set our first effect. We have a bucket brigade delay. Really nice chorus, which again is great for strings and some brass sounds. Like you can get classic sort of brass sounds out of this. A flanger, which will turn down the rate. I think the flanger and the phaser sound really good. And they're stereo, so I really like being able to add stereo interest to my sounds. A high-pass filter in case what you've done over here needs a little bit of shelving, which is useful. A ring mod, which I don't really use that much. Rotating speaker. This thing is interesting. So it's like a Leslie speaker, and you have some controls over, obviously, the effects mix, which we have over here. Mic distance, and if we turn the mic distance down, you're going to hear that rotation a little bit more. Rotating around the stereo space, and then the amount of drive. Mic distance gives you sort of this, and drive give you this sort of like cabinet feel, which is a really cool thing to be able to add to stuff. You can either add subtle stereo interest, or with some of the other patches just get really, really grungy and nasty, which is fun. What else we got? So that's it for this effect unit. Effect 2 has most of the same, except Effect 2 gives you access to Superplate, which is their plate reverb. It is not my favorite reverb in the world, but it is nice to have on here. So you have controls like pre-delay. You can hear that that was continuously variable. You can hear it sweeping around, so you can imagine that modulating that would give you some interesting sound design options. Tone, you can focus on highs, mid-slows, stuff like that. And then the amount of time, which is actually almost infinite. And here we're distorting a little bit now. But depending on where you dial in this tone, you can get like some interesting sort of frozen textures. I have people say that they think that the build quality of this is not very good. All of these knobs here are plastic, and I don't know. This is my first DSI synth, and I think that it feels really, really good. I don't really have a problem with the build quality. If it was metal, like the Pro 12 or like the Profits, the Pro 6 or something like that, that'd be great. But it's not, and it still feels like a really substantial, nice piece of gear. So those are the effects engines. Wow, I made a lot of presets for this. All right. Global, and there is an actual shortcut for this. I can't remember what it is, so we're not going to use it. But if I go into Global and select a basic program, it will write a basic program to, or an init patch to this. So we are in monophonic mode right now with one oscillator up. You can see here's the levels of the oscillators, including noise. I didn't talk about noise before, but there's noise. And filter all the way up, etc., etc. So in normal monophonic mode, you can bring in all these oscillators, and we get a stacked instrument, a stacked monophonic instrument. And if that's what you want, that's great. Now, this is a good candidate. We're all in saw mode over here. Oh, excuse me. We're all in, let's see. Let's all be in saw mode. So saw, saw, saw. Saw, 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 saw. Everybody. And now let's go to paraphonic mode. So I can play a 3-note chord. Great. All 3 of these are set to the same wave shape, which is why this sounds like a coherent instrument. We'll cut itself off because it only has 3 notes it can play. It only has 3 oscillators. So the thing you have to keep in mind, though, is what it's actually doing. It's going to round robin between these 3 oscillators, which is very interesting in some ways. So check this out. If I start changing these wave shapes, okay, I don't know if you've picked up on what's going on here, but you can hear that it's round-robining through these 3 wave shapes as it needs another note, as it's trying to engage in paraphonic mode. And that's really cool. If you set all 3 of these to the same wave shape, you can play chords and it will sound like a, like a 3-note chord of the same instrument. But the ability to change these wave shapes drastically and have it round robin through them means that you can get these really complex arpeggiated lines. I think it's really cool, personally. So, that's the idea behind paraphonic and non-paraphonic mode. You do have the ability to play chords on this, and that's great. 3 notes, because 3 oscillators. But you also get this interesting round-robin effect depending on how you're interacting with this, which can be very cool. Now, if I was to modulate the shape mods on these, which is what we're going to do next, we can get even more interesting things. So, let's go into the thing here, the mod matrix, the thing. I am a professional. Let's go to source, and we're going to go down to this, source 1. This source and destination thing is incredibly useful. So you just saw that I hit source, and I can select a source, and there's a lot of sources and a lot of destinations. You can also scroll through these, like this. But what we're going to do for right now is hit source LFO1, and then we're going to hit destination, and turn our shape mod here, and then we're going to turn it up. So if we, there we go, okay. And we'll adjust the rates of these in a second. So I'm going to go back into my thing here, go down to the next slot, source LFO2, destination shape mod 2, and turn it up. And then go down to the next one, source LFO3, destination shape mod 3. Cool. So now you can hear we have some modulation going on with our oscillators and their shape mod. Let's, just for fun, let's go ahead and do this for the shapes themselves. So oscillator 1, I want source LFO1, actually no, source LFO2, because I want to cross sort of modulate these. And we will go to destination shape and turn up the amount. All right, let's adjust the rates over here. So if I hit LFO 1, 2, or 3, I have control over a bunch of stuff here. So we'll go ahead and I think we have a bunch of different shapes here, which is cool. But we want triangle, and we'll just turn this down. This will make a different rate, and this will also make a different rate. So now that we've adjusted these, we have the LFOs doing the work on making this an interesting thing. And I just think it's wonderful. I think it's very pretty. It's almost like the same reason that I've been really enjoying modular lately. the ability to modulate things is what makes patches interesting and makes them listenable for long periods of time. And I'm realizing that I just really love hearing complex modulation in patches. It's one of the things I'm excited about the upcoming Hydrasynth arrival as well, plus all the modules that I ordered to go in the modular system. So we do have some aux envelopes over here, which we will talk about now. So if I go up to here and hit source, and I hit any one of these, or turn any one of these knobs here, I will have selected that aux envelope as a modulation source. Now, one of the things that's really cool is where these can go. So frequency, if you wanted to do percussion, for all 3 oscillators, but also all 3 of them at once. Fine frequency for all 3, or all of them. You can also send it to shape for all 3 oscillators, shape mod, the amount of slop. So if you really wanted to like have a sort of detuned thing, and it's probably better suited for a, what do you call it, an LFO. You can modulate the levels of the LFO, of each oscillator. Noise. External audio level, so it does have an external audio in to process stuff externally. Now, drive is a great shaping tool. Hey, come back here. For the filter, but we have this almost all the way up. So let's go to, I mean, obviously cutoff and stuff like that. Now, if you needed dual modulation at the cutoff, you could do that here. Resonance. Here is, actually, let's assign this to an LFO just so you can hear what this variable state filter can do. So now I'm modulating with an LFO that state variable filter, so you can really hear everything that it can do. Cool. So we talked about the envelopes here. Let's assign this one to one of my favorite things that you can do here, which is panning. And I'm going to go through a couple different options here because we get some very interesting results. So right now, aux envelope 1 is set to panning. Instant stereo interest. Now this is triggering with every note, so this may not be to your liking, but the good thing is we have a billion of sources here. So let's just go through some of them and check it out. So there's aux envelope 2. Pitch bend. Mod wheel. KK slider. Random, which is real good for something like this maybe. DC offset. Like, what? Why is that an option? But I love it. Audio out. So at this case, it's actually listening to what is playing and using that as a modulator, which if you start doing things like, let's see, that's it on the coarse frequency for oscillator 1. That's really cool. So now the audio out of this device is being sent to modulate the fine frequency of oscillator 2, which is just wild to me. Let's go back to panning on this. And an envelope follower. So this would be very useful for a billion things. Peak hold. And then some CV values. Where's sequencer track? So this shows you how robust the sequencer is. We have 16 tracks of sequencing. So if I go into track 16 here, 16, here's the sequencer. Now you can see that I can, oops, I just turned it off. And it's that easy to make modulation tracks on the sequencer, which is really, really, really cool. So, I hope that gives you a taste of how just wonderful the mod matrix is and some of the insane options that you have here. One of the things I like to assign to panning also is noise. Where is noise? Or oscillator 3. It sounds really, really cool. And as of course, if I change this, I'm going to get different panning. Or if I change the frequency of it. So just a modulation beast, like, so fucking cool. And then we have CV if you wanted to integrate a modular setup with this, which I will do at some point. All right, let's go through some other presets and see if there's anything I have forgotten to talk about. Oscillator slop going on here. It was really important for me to be able to hear whether or not this thing could do chill sounds, and it can. About the sequencer a little bit more once I get into a patch that is really using it. Mod, a little vibrato mapped to the aftertouch here for the ultimate wank. We talked earlier about being able to send various things to mod the oscillator shapes and stuff, and this is another example of that. Distortion mapped to the mod wheel, frequency mapped to, or envelope amount mapped to the thing here. Yeah, this one's a good one. There's a lot about this synth that makes me think like Doom soundtrack. So I had to make some real ugly arpeggiated lines. That rotating speaker effect on here, which is that nartsy sort of like stereo thing going on, and that plate reverb as well. And then we have this mapped to the filter envelope amount, which sometimes is a better way to go than just mapping to the cutoff. Cutoff is great, but this gives you a sharper sort of thing going on. And you can map a billion things to this if you really wanted to go crazy. This will give us an opportunity to talk about the sequencer. So this wavetable, let's go ahead and look at our oscillators. This wavetable oscillator is called like 808, and it's actually drums. And with very careful sequencer modulation, I was able to actually program a drum line, which is wild. So let's look at the sequencer. So by hitting track select, you can select one of these 16 sequencer tracks. And some of them are pre-assigned. You can see we have cutoff, notes, velocity, duration, and ratchet. But a lot of these can be assigned or reassigned, which is really, really nice. Or maybe just 1 through 8. I'm not 100% sure. So I have aux envelope 1 assigned to the wavetable shape. So let's mess with this a little bit and see what happens. What I wanted was a really quick sweep down through the part of the wavetable that it was in, because each part of the wavetable is a drum. So with a little tiny sweep down through that wavetable shape, it passes through the part of the wavetable that is assigned to that drum. Anyways, oh, there it is. Assign 1, oscillator mod. Okay. I don't know why it didn't show up here in my selections, but so this is what's actually changing the wavetable position. So if I mess with these values, I'll start getting different. So that's the power of these wavetables and their sequencer. Again, pretty standard thing, but what you can hear now is that we're passing through 4 different sequences. And that's something that you can do. You can link these sequences so they play after each other, which is really, really cool. Wanted to see if I could make a heavily modulated, weird bass sound. The answer is yes. This one's something I just made some edits to before I started the video, because I wanted to make it a little bit more obvious what was going on. So if we go into the source modulation, the modulation stuff over here, you can see that I have noise assigned to panning, and I have aux envelope 2 assigned to panning. Goom. Can we make a bass? Of course you can make a bass. Come on. Are shaking right now. There's so much bass to be had in this thing. Here is a paraphonic saw patch, which I have named very maturely, and this will give you a taste of what, when you have all 3 of these signed to the same waveform, and over here you have like this wonderful state variable filter. tweezer on this sounds so good. One thing I haven't talked about yet, and God bless you if you're still watching, this video is a bit more freeform than any of the other videos I've done on synth gear, just because I just like playing this thing. I haven't talked about the tune feedback circuit at all. This patch uses it. So what's going on here is not a single oscillator is turned up, but we have noise. Aux envelope 1 is set to turning the noise up. So just a noise oscillator, but then the tuned feedback circuit gives us almost car plus strong sort of thing. Very unique sound. Got some distortion going on there. Here's a more standard ARP line using that same car plus strong sort of tune feedback thing. Rubber butt. This is just using the wavetable oscillator. Anyways, we already determined this thing can get nasty. I made a joke video making a KK Slider song. That's KK Slider drunk as hell. It's a good one to go out on. So yeah, this is the Sequential Pro 3, an absolute beast, and I use that with all intended hyperbole. It's just a really, really, really interesting and capable synth. The modulation options on it make it stand apart from a lot of stuff that I have seen, and will give you just an amazing amount of variety in your patches once you come to terms with the way the oscillators sound and stuff like that. Like sells as a monosynth, but also you have the paraphonic mode, which will give you different options. I just showed you switching between these two modes does stop the thing, and I wish it didn't. This sort of like just kills everything, but it is what it is. I think it sounds amazing. It is built very nicely, at least for me, and it's my first sequential synth, and I like it quite a bit. It's a good chunky friend. I hope this has been fun for you. There we go. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and maybe subscribe for other synth content. And if you want to support the channel, there is a Patreon link in the video description. And I'd love to see you on our Discord, where we have lots of fun stuff happen over there. So yeah, maybe we'll see you there. My name is Jeremy. This is Red Means Recording, and I hope you have a very sequential day.